welcome to episode 1 of the Take Two podcast. I am your
Go.
host, Nathan. Just introduce myself. I go to school at the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, holding the Gophers. My teams are, I like the Huskers. No matter where I go to school, they always first, baby. I like the Gophers. Sadly enough, I like the Vikings. Timberwolves, Warriors. You know, you know where it's at. Now I'm going to pass it off to the man in the jersey.
I'm Abdullah. I'm a student at University of Nebraska Omaha. Nate's shirt, great shirt. My teams are also Nebraska because you can't beat them. I also have a second basketball team in Kansas. Then can't forget about my glorious king on my chest, Patrick Mahomes, and then also a big Knicks guy. Well, also a Royals. So like I stay in the middle in the Midwest, and then I go to the Knicks. But that's me.
All right, Mr. Surham.
All right,
Just
yeah. My
go.
name's Danny. I'm also at the University of Nebraska Omaha. I'm also a Husker fan. Will always be. I'm also a Broncos fan. Fuck the Chiefs. And then I'm a Pelicans fan. I know that's like out of the ordinary, but 2K my career.
Burger.
Yeah, I know. And then yeah, I don't really watch baseball, so I don't have a team. But yeah, that's about me.
All right,
He's an Astro fan.
all right, Mr. Davey.
I'm Davison Kryling. I go to the University of Nebraska Lincoln. Go Big Red in all sports. I also support UNO baseball because my brother's a pitcher there. For NFL, big Saints fan. Don't follow the NBA and the MLB as much, but I am a Clippers and a Royals fan.
Good choices.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Last but not least,
All right. I'm Liam. I'll keep you on your toes a little bit. I'm actually an Iowa fan. We got a little bit of variety up in here,
But where
I
do you
do
go though? Where do you go?
I do go to the University of Nebraska Lincoln. So I'm balancing it. I am. This is what I tell my family, who are huge Iowa fans. I am an Iowa fan. No, I'm a Nebraska fan 11 out of their 12 games of the year, and the one game I'm not is when they're playing Iowa. But other than that, it's some pain. We got the Bears and the Mets, and it's not fun. I claim to be a Celtics fan, but I don't really follow the NBA, so that one I can be considered a bandwagon. But they are winning the chip this year. That's my take.
Good.
all right.
It's
Well,
their year. It's their year.
it's now you know everybody. So let's just get things started with our first segment of the day. All right, welcome back. Our first segment of the episode. We're going to talk about what's on everyone's mind in the sports world right now. It is the NFL playoffs. More specifically, the NFL divisional round just finished up. 4 beautiful games. Let's talk our thoughts and let's talk about what happened. Let's start off with the first game of the weekend, and that was the Ravens taking down the young Texans. Abdullah, what do you got for us about this game?
What I got from this game is just inexperience. I feel like that first half was pretty close for the Texans. You know, they thought they had their chance, but it really came down just who was more experienced. And I feel like the Ravens showed that they've been there before, and that Lamar, he finally got his groove going, and that's all that it really takes for that team is just their quarterback needs to get going, and they're good to go. So, I feel like that game was always going to be the Ravens, no matter how it played out, because just based off of that. So yeah.
Absolutely. Me personally, I was a big supporter of both of these teams. You know, I love the young story of C.J. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans. That's a great story over there in Houston, and you know, to really blow any expectations out of the water. They were supposed to be rebuilding. They were supposed to be last. They weren't even supposed to be close to this spot. And I'm a big fan of Lamar. I like the Ravens, and so this was just a really good game for me personally. I wish it was a little bit closer. I wish that Texans could get something going on offense because their only touchdown came from a punt return. So, it it was. I was happy with the result. I kind of wish that CJ and Bobby Slowick got something going a little bit more over there on the Texans, though. But good luck to the Ravens in a very tough AFC Championship game. So, yeah, this was a definitely not the closest game, but still a very good game. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really high on CJ Stroud. I think that give it two years time maximum, really, people will see him in the same light as Joe Burrow, and the fact that that early in his career he could be a top 5-10 QB. The bar is really high for him, especially after 1 year of taking the team that with the second overall pick all the way to winning a division and taking them to the divisional round. I even picked the Texans to win this game prior to the game, and got that prediction wrong. But it didn't take anything away from me for how good CJ Stroud is. I think the Ravens might just be a wagon this year. We'll get to it later. Abdullah, I know you're a big Chiefs guy, but I see the Ravens being maybe the best team right now, especially after that 49ers performance, which we'll get to. But that's my takeaways.
It's hard not to think the Ravens are the best team in the league.
I'm gonna take you one further. I'm gonna say that I think maybe a bit of a hot take. I think CJ Stroud's ceiling is higher than Joe Burrow's. Joe Burrow throughout his career, we've seen he's been in the league 4 years now, and 2 of those years he hasn't played double-digit games due to a season-ending injury. And while there's not a lot you can do about it, put that shit down. Well, there's not a ton you can do about that. What's the phrase? Availability is the best ability. And even throughout his days at Ohio State, CJ Stroud was just consistent. He started every day. He suited up. Granted, he did have an amazing O-line, but he didn't really this year, and that really came to fruition in this Ravens game. He was just getting hit, knocked down, flushed out of the pocket. He did not have a lot of time, and there was just it was hard to watch. Even Laramie Tunsil, who's this borderline all-pro guy on that left side. In blocking he was fine, but he had one really bad false start, and it just that whole O-line was just not in sync with one another.
Yeah, there's not really much you can do against that Ravens D line. They held the entire team to around 40 rushing yards.
Yeah,
they couldn't get anything going in the run, and I feel like that's definitely one of the biggest factors why they couldn't get going.
I think the biggest takeaway from that game is that even though the score doesn't show it, that CJ Stroud's he's a baller.
He is a baller.
The Texans are going to be a team. They're going to be a team in 2-3 years time you are not going to want to see in the playoffs. I think D'Amico Ryan, this team before the season, this team was a 6-win team. They had the second overall pick a year ago.
They're what the Jets wanted to be.
And they're what the Jets tried to be. The Jets went out, they gave up a bag for Aaron Rodgers, brought in every single guy Aaron Rodgers wanted, including Danny's favorite coach, Nathaniel Hackett, his favorite coach.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not really seeing the vision with that one from Aaron Rodgers. I have no idea. Maybe there's some connection there, or
it was obviously he didn't.
Okay, then that makes sense. But you see a success with the Broncos, and I just honestly that even especially as a GM or a head coach, that is pushing me away from wanting to put him on my staff again, especially as a coordinator.
What the Texans showed me is that putting in some fresh blood can really help. Just changing the culture, it can help in huge ways.
This is the one I want to talk about.
All right. So moving on to the evening game on Saturday. Quite a contest it was, ladies and gentlemen. The 49ers taking down the Packers in a thriller. in a battle between the 1 seed and the 7 seed in the NFC. Davison, what we got? What we got from this one?
You know, and this game didn't exactly disprove this take, but prior to this game, watching the Packers down the stretch, watching them beat the Bears, beat the Cowboys, I can't exactly. I just know that they were playing really well. Blew out the Vikings in Minneapolis.
They love that.
But just
What happened the week before?
watching the
Happened the
way
game before.
Jordan Love played down the stretch of this season really proved to me not I guess you can't say exactly proved to this point yet, but I think they have found their next Favre, their next Rodgers in him. I think it's really I really think it's going to work out. He just looks so comfortable now. He didn't look that comfortable at the beginning of the season, and he really found his way in and he waited his turn. He's been waiting for this, and he played his best football to get him to the playoffs and then get him a win in the playoffs. It should have really had a second one here. And that's where I come to. Brock Purdy was bad in this game, man. It wasn't that he played a mid game. He was bad, and anybody watching this game knows that. I mean, that final drive, sure, but again, even that they're just dinking and dunking down the field. Christian McCaffrey does the dirty work to get to the end zone. Jordan Love, in my opinion, outplayed Brock Purdy. Besides the unforced turnover really by Jordan Love at the end of this game. It was very unnecessary to throw that ball over the middle. All you need is a field goal. You have enough time to go down the field. You can't make that pass, and that's the mistake Brock Purdy didn't, and that was the difference in the game.
Well, if I can add to this, I think in both the Packers playoff games, Jordan Love despite what the stats say, he outplayed 2 MVP caliber quarterbacks this season. I mean, say what you want about Dak, but he has the stats to be an MVP candidate. And Love just straight up balled. Like it didn't matter what you threw at him, but he played 2 elite defenses and he was still able to get some success going, despite this Packers team being like in a rebuild year. Like what he was able to do with that offense was pretty remarkable.
I'm gonna go as far to say I'm not worried about the 49ers. I do think they're gonna get out of the NFC. At the very least, I think Detroit comes to San Francisco. I don't think they win that game. I think it's close. I think Detroit keeps them close. And maybe San Francisco has a similar game to Green Bay where they just keep themselves out of it and they just allow this to happen. They just and numbers wise, these teams should not have matched up like that. But Green Bay was hot. Green Bay was very hot. And San Francisco, I mean, we like to say that this bye week that you get is like enough to prepare for whatever team you play and you're going to come out hot, but they just looked ice cold throughout that entire game. But the fact that they won it, that's big. That's a big thing because they very easily probably should have lost that game. That was not a game that they should have won. It was in Green Bay's hands the entire time. But I mean, the fact that they got out of it, I think that especially Kyle Shanahan is just going to get their heads right for the game against Detroit. And, whether it's Baltimore or Kansas City in the Super Bowl, I don't think we're going to see a similar effort as we did against Green Bay.
But my concern with that, Liam, is they made these mistakes against the Packers. And when they play the Lions, like him or hate him, Jared Goff is a veteran QB in this league, and he will not make the mistake that Jordan Love did at the end of this game. You can call him a game manager, you can call him whatever you want, but that Lions offense is good. And if they had this much struggle against a very young Packers team, I'm concerned next week against the Lions. And coming into the playoffs, I thought that the Lions could be a good story, but I didn't think they could get past the NFC Championship. If you look at this Lions game this week on paper and this Niners-Packers game this week on paper, the Lions really should have a chance here. And if you're a Niners, I think there is cause for concern about what you saw this last week.
Another thing for the Lions thing is they have nothing to lose. This is their year will go down. All they wanted to was even make the playoffs. So they're just playing to be there. Like they're just happy to be there. For the 49ers, this will bring up a lot of questions if like if the quarterback is right, if they need to make changes. Like this team was so dominant, but showing the what a little young team like the Packers can do against these veterans, it poses the question what a like a Dan Campbell hungry nothing to lose team can do to them. Like it's I'd be worried about that.
Absolutely. To me, it was very interesting. Kind of a note. We saw this comparison in the wild card round too, but this Texans season and Packers season, respectively, a lot of similarities there. They had their times of struggles. They have new next generation quarterbacks that have really emerged. And in both in years that they were supposed to be rebuilding, both in years they're supposed to suck. And then they don't. They make the playoffs and not only make the playoffs, make the divisional round, beating formidable opponents in the first round with veteran players. And so I feel like the Texans and Packers are going to be around for a while. And I feel like if you're a fan of either of those fan bases, you should be happy with where your team's sitting at right now.
Which is bad for you and Liam.
No.
Yeah.
And Nate. Hold on.
Yeah.
I said Nate and Liam.
Okay.
All right. Let's move now to Sunday, where the Sunday game was kicked off with yet again another thriller that came down to a game-losing interception. Lions move on to the NFC Championship game, defeating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, red hot. Liam, what did this game tell you about both teams?
Well, for starters, I am of the opinion that Baker needs to come back for Tampa Bay. I don't think Baker needs Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay needs Baker. I mean, Baker's season, while statistically was good, it wasn't great. It was good, and he led a team that was also on that borderline of will they, won't they make the playoffs. They did make the playoffs. I mean, he showed the league. He put the league on notice that hey, what you saw from me, I mean, with the Rams and the Panthers and that very last season with the Browns, that was a shell of himself. It looks like, as far as I'm concerned, that he's back to what we thought he would be. And I think teams know that he's going to get approached by teams in free agency. But I think as far as the Bucs are concerned, they're not going to have a high pick in the draft. Outside of Baker Mayfield, there's no as far as I'm concerned, there's no starting quarterbacks that are going to be in free agency outside of Baker Mayfield. No quarterbacks that I would feel comfortable starting week in and week out. And if I'm on the Bucs, staff, coaching staff, whatever, front office, that is my top priority is bringing him back. But as far as the Lions, I mean, touching on what Abdullah said, when we were talking about the Niners and Packers, I mean, nobody expected this. Playoffs seemed very, very likely, especially with that strong start against Kansas City in week 1, where the Lions just got off to the races. That's when we started to be like, okay, we will most likely see them in the playoffs, maybe as a wild card team, maybe as like a fringe wild card, like they're a bottom seed, but they weren't. They won their division very handily. And I just like the Dan Campbell era, as far as I'm concerned, it's
the statue.
Just what they needed. It's just what they needed. Put the statue up, hang the banner. Like, I don't know if they are a Super Bowl caliber team. I think against the Ravens or the Chiefs, I am not comfortable picking them winning that game. And honestly, I'm starting to not feel as comfortable about my 49ers Super Bowl pick. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick to my guns, but this postseason is going so unlike what I expected, at least.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I like your point about Dan Campbell being the man for Detroit, because all Detroit needed, honestly, with years, decades of just nothing, all they needed was someone who believed. They needed hope. They needed belief. And Dan Campbell is the most, he could make me run through a wall. That guy, he believes in each player on that roster down to the practice squad. and that's what's elevated them so high this year. Like I like your point. Everyone had high expectations for them. Definitely, yes. They're like, oh, they just were out of the playoffs last year and they got better. They're gonna make the playoffs this year. But they not only stood on that, they went even further and like, okay, but what if we threaten a Super Bowl run?
When I was at that Lions Chiefs game to begin this season with my older brother, who is a huge diehard Lions fan. And both of our takeaways from that game, rooting for the Lions, paying more attention to the Lions, was that they didn't play their best game, and they came away with a win. And to this point, what looks like a really, really good win, maybe the best win in the NFL this season, over what many still consider. I mean, obviously, it's a Final Four team in this NFL this year, a team that's always really good, the team that won the Super Bowl last year, the Chiefs. And they didn't play their best game, and they went in and they won the game. Obviously, the Chiefs didn't play their best game either. Kadarius Toney, but they still walked into Arrowhead and came out with a W, and it was freaking loud. It was the loudest stadium that I maybe ever heard in person. First game of the year for the Chiefs, getting a ring ceremony and stuff. It was a ruckus environment, and they were able to go in and get that win. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is this Lions team has so much potential, so much, and it's a potential that I don't even think that most people realize, because you haven't really seen it many times from them this year. I think they've kind of played down to their competition. They almost lost to the Bears at home, then lost to the Bears on the road. It really came out in the sweep over Minnesota this year. And, you can say Minnesota's not that good, whatever, they didn't make the playoffs, but to a Lions fan, any Lions fan, you just never see that. And they took 2 from Minnesota this year. But I still don't think that we've seen the best form of a Lions team yet. And maybe we never will. But if there was any time for it to come out, it'd be this next week against the 49ers.
Yeah, and like seeing how like Jahmyr Gibbs has been playing in Amon-Ra, I think the league should be scared of what Jahmyr Gibbs could become, because he's still like at the beginning of his development, and he's already playing like this well in the playoffs against these high caliber defenses. I think after maybe a season or two, he could be like a superstar in the NFL, and people need to start watching out for that.
I guess my question is, and this is for everybody, is Jared Goff going to be the guy who leads this Lions team to that Super Bowl? I mean, obviously, there's this widespread belief that he is only a game manager, that he's not, your franchise quarterback. I mean, obviously, it seems they think differently, as they gave up not a lot. They gave up Matthew Stafford to get him, which, in retrospect, seems like a downgrade, but it almost seemed like Jared Goff fits this team.
I mean, that trade is so even.
Both teams got what they were looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rams immediately won a Super Bowl with Matt Stafford, and while they did have a down year the next year and just injuries all over, I mean, this year they're really young outside of a couple guys like Donald, Kupp, Stafford. Otherwise, all across the board, they have players on rookie contracts. I mean, I would be scared of the Rams as well as the Lions. I think both teams are blossoming NFC teams and the Rams by no means should be, given that they won the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. But the fact that they went from that to a losing season and then back to the playoffs, I expect them to just keep building from this 9-win season.
As for your Jared Goff point, I don't really think the Lions expect him to be the guy. I don't think that's what they need out of him right now. When you say game manager, and to me that sounds like system QB, and the same thing people say about Brock Purdy. I'm not the highest on Brock Purdy as many other people are, but that's not what the 49ers need Brock Purdy to be. They need him to go in, not turn the ball over, and just move the team down the field. They have so many weapons. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey can help him do that. They have a great O-line. and then he just comes in there and he manages the game. That's exactly what Jared Goff is for the Lions. So when you say lead the Lions to the Super Bowl, yes, that he's the quarterback, so you see him as the leader. But I really think it's more managing if he does that. He's just not turning the ball over, and just kind of moving his team down the field. Now there is a stigma about Jared Goff, and it's proven to be true. People say he can only play in domes. They call him Dome Goff. And it has proven to be true for years. 49 San Francisco, while it is in California, a little bit of a warm weather climate, it's going to be a little bit chilly on Sunday night, and so we'll see what Jared Goff you get.
All right, awesome. Yes, that's going to be a good game. As we already talked about the 49ers, now we've talked about the Lions, both with their question marks, both with their strengths. We'll have to see who comes out on top. And now we move on to the final divisional round game. Abdullah licking his lips over there, folks.
Here we go.
One of the greatest games of the postseason, obviously. The highly anticipated what is it, round 7 between these two teams in the Mahomes Allen era.
Game 7.
Every single year, every single time it happens, it's absolute cinema from beginning to end. It's always close. And we got another one of those today. The Chiefs pulled it out on a Tyler Bass missed field goal. Abdullah, I know you got a lot to say about this. Spill it on us.
I would have a lot to say, but I kind of don't. Obviously, that game was very weird for the Bills. I mean, the result was never in question. The GOAT is always going to do his thing. He's always gonna do what he needs to do. But the Bills just played a very weird game. They made some decisions that were just like I don't like the punt with Hamlin. I don't know what you're thinking there. I mean, this is kind of a weird take, but I feel like maybe they should have played for a 4-down game on that last drive instead of trotting out Bass in a windy, cold game. But that's just straight up coaching, and the Chiefs will always coach circles around the Bills. And about this QB battle, Allen and Mahomes, they're both great. They're awesome. One's greater. One will always be greater. But Allen, I've seen so many people praising him. Oh, you played so good. Yes, he didn't lose his team the game, but he can't win his team the game either. He's not proven to play in big games. It's not even against the Chiefs. Last year at home, another perfect scenario like this game was, Burrow came in and beat him. He's allergic to getting over that hump. And I feel like it needs to be talked about more instead of being like, oh my God, did you see how much he threw? Oh, did you see him run over 4 guys? Does it matter? They're out. They're sitting in Cancun now.
Hey, Josh Allen better start learning Chinese, buddy.
I like that. Get rid of Zach Edey, buddy.
I don't hate that take, actually. I like your point that he hasn't proved that he can win these games, which you're absolutely right. Because he was not the issue in that game against the Chiefs. I mean, there's a lot of things you can blame it on. I'm going to blame it on the drops. That's going to be what I'm going to put this game on.
Stephon Diggs.
I mean, that I am still baffled by that. You have one of the better receivers in the league, a top 5 arguably receiver in the league, definitely top 10.
Certified Pro Bowler.
So all pro bowler. I mean, he's been in this league for 7-8 years now. There's no reason for him to drop that. I am completely baffled by that.
I mean,
and Sherfield had a couple drops.
My favorite thing about that Diggs thing is, what does he even do anymore? The last 10 games, he's not even wide receiver 3. He's barely wide receiver. He's just, I don't know if it's wanting to get out. If he doesn't anymore.
What is this guy doing?
He's not there. And for a 4th year straight, he's looking at us celebrate. I'm just saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all I'm saying is somebody won the trade. Somebody won the trade.
Okay. I mean,
I didn't get to watch much of this game. I was hooping. I'm not even gonna lie.
And sleeping. Yeah.
And sleeping.
Hey, the game got done before I started sleeping. It got done at like 8:30.
Oh,
All right, old man.
But I was putting in some baskets at the old rec center at UNL. But
okay.
what I did see from this game, I'm gonna go with one takeaway. It's gonna be short and sweet. Buffalo, this isn't Disney Channel. Why are we snapping it to DeMar Hamlin on a fourth?
It's not Make-A-Wish, baby. It's not Make-A-Wish.
Oh god!
I'm just gonna lay down and let him go score a touchdown. And a guy that's barely in the field this year is touching the ball on 4th and 5 from your own 30 in the fourth quarter of a divisional game. Take the pass out of it. He shouldn't have even been on the field.
For the Hamlin thing, I just have a video that I would love to play.
Oh Lord.
That's exactly what they wanted to happen.
He's right.
Although this happens to be Nebraska, go Big Red. No.
Did Buffalo think that the Chiefs were going? Oh, it's DeMar Hamlin. All right,
Don't
let him score a touchdown in this divisional. DeMar shouldn't be in the field in this game. I don't know what the hell Sean McDermott was thinking, but
If someone's getting ready to learn,
is exactly what you talk about and being outcoached. Because what do you even think that Scott Frost doesn't make that decision?
he already did though. He made that exact decision against Northwestern.
I was expecting that Key and Peele video, where the kid just gets fucking killed.
So what Liam said at the beginning, someone that needs to get ready to learn Chinese is Sean McDermott. You are on thin ice.
Whoa!
He's on thin ice. He's on thin ice.
Yeah, I'm
Thin
happy to agree with
ice.
that.
I don't know about thin ice. I think he should be questioned, but he shouldn't be on thin ice.
I mean, if
Vrabel
Vrabel can get fired, McDermott can just as easily.
Here's the thing.
Vrabel hasn't made it.
It's the NFL. You have to make improvement.
That's true.
Right.
I think Sean McDermott should be. I can't remember who. Someone mentioned. Oh yeah, Abdullah. You're talking about how Josh Allen all this year. All these years he has good numbers, makes crazy plays, but can't get over the hump. I feel like Sean McDermott should be getting that exact same treatment because it's also
Thank you.
a little bit on him for some of these coaching decisions. It's not every single playoffs, but you can blame the players. I don't think you can ignore the coaching in this situation. I don't think Sean McDermott is a bad coach. I'm just saying, like Davison said, there's no improvement there. It's the same result every single year.
I will say I'm hesitant to let go of a coach who wins you 10 plus games every single year, gets you into the playoffs, sometimes gets you far in the playoffs. I mean, an example I have for this is Lovie Smith. All those years ago, where the Chicago Bears made the great decision to fire him after only an 8-win season. And you know what's happened since then? Since we fired him, we've made the playoffs a total of 2 times. We fired Lovie Smith 11 years ago. And since then, we've made the playoffs 2 times, and we've had 1 winning record. That's why I'm hesitant, especially with a franchise such as Buffalo, where you had those 4 straight Super Bowl losses in the 90s. I mean, I think most Buffalo fans are going to take the success, but I also think a large part of this season, I think this is the best team they've had so far. They were just injuries were killing them. Even in this game, they just kept coming back to bite them. I mean,
the Chiefs had them too.
But they were nowhere near with the injuries the Buffaloes had. The Bills suited up 3 linebackers to start this game. And then they went down to 2. It's just, it pains me because that team had a lot of firepower. The Von Miller contract is still horrible. It will always be horrible. It's a horrible signing. And if you're going to question Sean McDermott, question this front office who's giving him this team.
Everybody
giving him this team.
Everybody in the Bills organization is sort of like.
Yeah, I don't think it's a head coach that's the issue. I think something else needs to happen in that staff. And
but yeah, for closing remarks, I guess on this division round is Lamar, get ready, buddy. We're coming. hard and fast.
What?
No,
You're
no
what?
pause. No pause.
Hard?
It's back to back season, baby. It's back to back season.
Ooh.
I
All
can't
right.
see a team. I can't see a team beating that Ravens roster.
We'll get ready for Sunday.
Ooh. We got some confidence
What-
coming
what-
out of the one
Wouldn't it
corner.
be cool if the game that began this season ended it though?
That would be fun. With a
You know
different
what?
result, though. With a different result.
No,
Ooh.
same exact. What I'm predicting.
All right.
2021, Jared Goff over Patrick Mahomes.
Eh.
All right. Now that we're on the topic of the playoffs, we've mentioned it several times. Let's move on to the championship round. Of course, we know the games are set. KC at Baltimore for the AFC, Detroit in Santa Clara for the NFC championship. What are we thinking about these games? What are we excited to see? What are we expecting to see from this game? Danny, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, okay.
We know what Abdul expects to see, but I really do think that Ravens Chiefs game is going to be a battle of who can shut down the other team's quarterback the most, because that is really what's going to decide this game. If Lamar Jackson gets going, and he probably will, there is no stopping that team because they have so many options, and then he's also like the biggest option on that team. But I think the KC defense, they do have the possibility to do it because they shut down that Bills team today. But I don't think they'll be able to stop the Ravens.
I'll keep my takes short and sweet so that we can get on to other people's ideas. For what Danny was saying about Lamar, I feel like the way to contain him, and the Chiefs have done it in the past. I know we lost our last matchup. It was only a 1-point game, but we have had success against him by, we know he needs to be mobile to be playing good. What the Chiefs have been really good at doing with him is making him stationary, and I don't think that changes. See, when Lamar gets going, right? That's the thing. When Lamar gets going, the Texans defense is not as talented as the Chiefs. This Chiefs defense, they're not as experienced as this Chiefs defense. This Chiefs defense just won a Super Bowl last year. They know what they're doing. And I feel like that type of, that just being there, knowing how to play in those games, just beating the Bills, like already playing a mobile physical quarterback like that. I just think it's going to come down to like just who knows how to play the game more, and it's the Chiefs. That's my thing. And then for the NFC side, I think the same thing. The 49ers have been there. They went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. I think they've got the experience, and I think it's just going to be a little too much for the Lions. But I would not mind an upset in that game. So I'm going Chiefs and I'm going Niners.
So I'm gonna go the Ravens. And I don't think this Abdul is gonna not like me. I don't think this game is gonna be particularly close.
Oh, crazy.
Ooh.
I really like this Ravens team. And my original pick for the Super Bowl was the 49ers. I'm switching that to the Ravens right at this moment. After just watching these two teams play against their competition, because they each got the bye week the first week, play against their respective teams. I think the Texans are better than the Packers, but maybe not by much. The Ravens just freaking handled the Texans. Like, it wasn't. Once that halftime hit, it wasn't a game. Something changed at halftime. Harbaugh made the changes that needed to be made in a 24-0 second half for the Ravens. I'm not. When I say not close, I'm talking about NFL not close. Like maybe like a 27-13 game. Like not like two touchdowns. I don't think it's going to be a one-score game. That's what I'm saying. I don't think they're just going to dog walk the Chiefs, but I think that they'll pull away in the second half just like they did against Houston. Maybe not to the same extent. So I'm taking the Ravens. And in the second game, I'm going to take Detroit. I like to believe that we're seeing the best we're seeing the full form of teams in the playoffs. So I believe that we might get more of the same from the 49ers next week, and we might get more of the same from Detroit. And if we see those two exact things, I certainly believe Detroit can walk out of there with a W.
Before this is the last thing I have to say. Just to go into like your halftime adjustments. Yes, that was beautiful, but it's going to be different because they're playing one of the greatest coaches of all time. You're acting like the Chiefs will not make adjustments. Lamar's gonna get boxed like a fish.
Okay, all right. Let's move on here. These are some good matchups. As much as we like the stories of CJ Stroud, the story of Tampa Baker, and all these stories. This is the result that's gonna produce the best games overall. And so I think this is ultimately what this is ultimately the best result, kind of like the college football playoff, where it's not the stories, it's the best four teams. I genuinely think these are the best four teams, top two in their respective conferences, and that's not just because they were seeded. They weren't even seeded that way, but it's not just because of it's because of just their teams and their completeness. For the AFC, a little bias here because once again, like the Ravens, like Lamar, but I'm gonna go with the Ravens. I don't think it's gonna be a two-score game. Honestly, going into that Bills game, I was not expecting it to be as much of a back and forth battle as it was. And so the one thing the Chiefs do, the one thing Mahomes and his offense does, is they don't keep it close. They keep it close. They rarely ever get blown out, and especially not in the playoffs. So I still got the Ravens winning. And especially being at home is going to be a big factor. I mean, just against the Texans, we saw the Ravens force plenty of pre-snap penalties. And I'm not saying that the Chiefs are as young and undisciplined as that. So I'm not saying that's exactly going to happen, but I'm more saying that M&T Bank Stadium has an impact, and that's gonna aid them. I think the Ravens ultimately come out this one in a close game. Give me 27-30 Ravens, and then heading
As
over to the
long as Jawan Taylor is your starting tackle, you will get penalties. Or Donovan Smith. We saw
You got a good
him
point.
struggle a
You
little
got
bit
a
against
good
the
point.
Bills.
All right, moving on to the NFC though. This is going to be this is the game I'm most excited for out of these two, just because like we saw these last weeks, question marks on both sides. Originally, people thought San Francisco was going to dog walk just straight to a title, but the thing is that last week was a little scary. Obviously, the Packers are hot, but so are the Lions. One of the hottest teams in the league right now, and honestly, they are America's team right now. Let's be honest. Everyone who doesn't have a dog in this fight of the NFL playoffs is rooting for the Detroit Lions. Even me, an NFC North fan, I want them to win. My original pick were the 2-1 seeds in these matchups, but you know what? I'm gonna make it audible here. Give me the Detroit Lions to win the NFC Championship. And this game is going to be close. Being in San Francisco is going to make it difficult. Obviously, you talked about the weather and the indoor stadium, dome golf. But the truth is that Lions offense is so good. And even though they may have their faults, even though the defense, who's not regarded as one of the best, but they also have their faults. The thing about Detroit that I think is going to push them over the edge is they are hungry. And they are fired up right now. And they have the whole state of Michigan behind them right now too. San Francisco looked a little too relaxed. They looked a little too out of rhythm last week. I think the energy pre-game is already on the side of the Lions, and I think they're going to soar that to a very, very close victory.
And I'll keep it short. Niners, Ravens. Ravens win. No, wait. Niners win. Niners win.
Okay.
I don't know about that one.
I'm sticking with the Niners. I'm gonna have faith.
The Ravens have already beaten them this season. They beat them on Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Ravens beat
Well,
the
the Bills
Niners.
beat the Chiefs earlier this year. What's your point?
I just think that the Ravens might have the Niners number.
If they
I
can
don't
get
know.
there. If they can get there.
We'll have
That
to see.
get-
We'll have to
fact
see.
does not exist in the NFL. As much as it may look like it, the 49ers and the Packers, that's the biggest one team has their number
Yeah.
in the NFL, at least in the playoffs. But I do believe that the whole one team has another team's number. That isn't something that exists in the NFL
No, Chiefs Bills.
when teams are so even. Dude, but the Bills beat the Chiefs all the time in the regular
4-3.
Like
Kyle
I
Shanahan's
don't count
not going
regular
to
season.
get outcoached a second time. He won't. He's too good of a coach to get beaten that badly by the same team a second time. I'm not saying he's not going to win. I'm not saying he's not going to lose. Who knows how that's going to go? Who truly knows? Besides, the people who wrote the script. But Kyle Shanahan is too good of a coach to let that game happen a second time, especially in the Super Bowl.
I like that take.
All
go
right.
Chiefs.
All
Shall we
right,
touch
folks.
the NBA.
We're gonna take a little break here, and we'll be back with some more podcasts. All right, welcome back to the Take Two podcast. We're gonna shift away from football and let's talk about some basketball, specifically the NBA. We're approaching the All-Star break. We are past midway in the season in terms of regular season games. The standings, they aren't that clear behind me, but there are some interesting stories. There are some interesting things to talk about. Abdullah, why don't you take away, start talking about some big news and NBA standing takes from the NBA?
Yeah, so as of, just today, we just saw a 70-point game dropped out of Joel Embiid. And while that is the main headline, we also saw a huge game out of Karl Anthony Towns. And I'm just gonna reiterate the fact that I think the age of the big men is back in the NBA. You got Wemby, you got Chet, and then you got older guys like Cat and Embiid making their case. It's just really nice to see after just 3-point shooters, just the splash bros. It's like I like the change of pace the NBA is going at. And then for I think this year might be Embiid. I think Embiid's going to go back to back. He's just been playing at such a high level. He may be a free throw merchant, but he has his game on lock. And I'm not very confident. I think the Sixers are going to have a very Sixers year, just like their NFL counterpart, the Eagles, where they're going to look pretty damn good and then just shit the bucket in the playoffs. But with that being said, Embiid is maybe the best basketball player in the NBA right now.
I wouldn't say he's the best basketball player in the NBA, but he's definitely putting up the best numbers in the NBA. I think the best player would have to be Luka. I think no one can touch Luka right now. Yeah,
There's a
I
lot
could
and
touch him. I could touch him.
Free throw merchant.
If I got close enough, I might be able to.
Yeah.
I've been saying Joel Embiid would win the MVP over Jokic. I've been saying it for a while, and then he's been consistently putting up like 30 plus points a game. I mean, he just had 70, which is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Jokic, he still has a pretty good. He has a chance. Like it's not. I don't think it's a cakewalk yet.
I just feel like if we're gonna talk about MVPs, you can only look at him because if he's not having his season, the Sixers are not where they're at.
Yeah.
And that could also be said for Jokic, but the way Embiid's been playing, like he's single-handedly putting the
Jokic is doing good, but Embiid
Embiid has the Sixers as a 3 seed pretty much by himself.
on his own.
I mean, he has Maxey and all that, but without his stats, they're not in those games.
You guys mentioned the word MVP. You guys, I agree with your points. Probably the two definite, like for sure, MVP front runners right now being Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. Let's talk about front runners for all awards now that we're past like around the midseason mark in the NBA. We know who the MVP guy, but let's talk about Rookie of the Year. There's this constant debate, Rookie of the Year, between Chet, between Victor. It seems to go back and forth, and I don't think anyone's too confident in one answer. So let's talk about the Rookie of the Year. Who do we think?
Wemby is a mythical beast. He's not real. He's quite literally an alien. But that being said, my Rookie of the Year is Chet,
I agree.
based off of success. I know he's like a little Ben Simmons thing. He's been around, but the way he was able to fit with that Thunder roster immediately made them a playoff team. He was their missing piece as a rookie. If you could fit that well, like it's like what Banchero did last year. Like he immediately fit in Orlando. He makes them so much better. Wemby, the Spurs don't use him right, so I can't give him the MVP. Like, I mean, he's an amazing player, but I have to give it to Chet just based off his success.
Yeah, and talking about like how he fits the team, I really think that is just what they needed because I'd say he's the best shooting guard in the league right now. Like, and that's not even close. But he really just needed another like offensive threat, and Chet's been doing that all year. And yeah, Wemby, he's been having crazy games, but I just think he needs to be utilized a lot more. Maybe Chet being in the NBA another season would have helped, like has helped him. But I mean, he's still the best rookie technically.
I mean, you can have crazy games, but you're still 8-35.
Yeah. Um.
Good point.
The Thunder are a 2 seed. Just
What about DPOY? We got this. It seems like there's no maybe this is just my casual NBA knowledge, but I'm not really hearing or seeing any true runaway front runner for defensive player of the year. You have a lot of names and candidates thrown around. What do we think about DPOY?
if we're going off of stats right now, even though I just don't like the guy, he is up there with one of the best defenders of this decade. It's going back to Gobert.
Yeah.
His rim protection is unlike anybody else's, and he had an off year last year. It was weird, but he is back. I think he's the lock. Like he's just there. And then I know we just talked about him, but Chet could also get in there.
I mean, I think he's second in the race right now.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'd say Joel Embiid, he can have a push for it, but it's not very likely. But Anthony Davis,
Yeah.
he's always been he's been one of the top names, and I think he'll continue to keep up with that.
And I love Anthony Davis, but those
Yeah.
two guys, they're one of the best teams in their conferences, and they're a huge part of that reason.
As we sit right now for Defensive Player of the Year betting odds, as we sit right now, Rudy Gobert leads the pack at minus 310, and then following him in this order is Chet Holmgren, OG, and I cannot say his last name. OG,
Anunoby, my Knicks.
Anthony
Nope.
Davis, Bam Adebayo, and then Derek White
Mhm.
rounds out DPOY.
Derek White
Cox
was a
as we
sleeper. I'm not
sit.
gonna lie. I never seen him doing these numbers.
Yeah, I know his position too. Like it's so competitive. He's been a dog for the Celtics.
All right. And then I guess just one final very quick answer to round out this NBA segment. Way too early. What's the finals going to be this year? What's it looking
I'll let you
like
go
as we
first
sit?
on this one.
I'm looking at how it is. The Celtics are hot. They're nice, but I'm going the Bucks for out of the East. I think that Giannis. I mean, Dame in the playoffs is already a mythical. He's always going to be there. He's going to perform. But then you add Giannis with that, they're going to be very hard to beat playoff time. Teams can beat them, but I think they're going back. And then out of the West, I mean, you got like the young teams like the Timberwolves and the Thunder, but I'm seeing the Nuggets back.
Yeah,
It just comes down to experience.
I agree with the Nuggets, I'm saying that the Western Conference championship game is going to be Thunder versus Nuggets, and the Nuggets having that late like playoff experience, that's gonna give them the edge. So I have them making it out. And yeah, Damian Lillard on that Bucks team, he just adds so much to it. I can't see them losing a full 7-game series.
I mean, and then like a little sleeper pick, I guess to say as of now, maybe I mean you can see a Cavs slip in there. They're on an 8-game win streak. Like
I could see the Cavs making it pretty
teams
far
get hot.
in the playoffs.
I can see my Knicks in.
Hey, hold on. Let's take a moment to appreciate the Knicks and the Pelicans.
Yeah, we're there. We're back.
We're there,
Boo.
right in the middle, right in the
They
middle of the
stink.
playoffs.
We're back. We're not even in the play on. We're solidifying.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps up
Sam just needs
professional
to stop being so
basketball.
fat.
The burger.
He's
All
a
right,
Burger.
that about wraps up NBA. Let's move to college b-ball. Davison, wake up, my guy. This is your time to shine. You see
Good
that N on
morning.
his chest.
Look at that
you know
smile. Look at that smile.
You know who he's about
Look
to
at that
start
grin.
rambling about.
Look at that
All right,
cheeser.
ladies and gentlemen, college b-ball. One first thing to talk about is that the last really like 3 or so weeks have been riddled with upsets and stories. It's not even March yet, folks, and things are already getting crazy. The standings are getting shaken up every single week, it seems like. What do we got to say about that, Davison?
I think that this year it just speaks to the parity in college basketball this year. I personally think Purdue is the best team in the nation, but you could tell me about 5 different teams and you could have a case for it, and that usually doesn't happen. Kansas isn't one of them. Sorry, Abdullah. Kansas is not one of them that's up for the best team in the nation right now. But I do believe that you could see, just like last year with UConn. UConn was a 4 seed. People forget that. UConn was not one of the top 3 seeds in the nation and came through as a 4 seed and won the tournament. It doesn't usually happen. It's usually a 1 or a 2 seed, maybe a 3. A 4 seed's pretty rare. You know, you get your occasional 8 seed, but UConn came through, and I think you could see something similar this year. I think there's a lot of parity in college basketball, and I love it. I love the sport.
The parity in college basketball is the reason that college basketball is what it is. It's the greatest, in my opinion. It might be just the great. Out of all the sports there is, college basketball is just the most exciting in my opinion, especially coming towards the tournament time. Like you can't get better games, you can't get better upsets. It's just perfect.
Absolutely. All right. And then you guys mentioned it, seeding and stuff like that, all up in the air and stuff like that. Let's talk a little bit about bracketology, if you must. What's it looking like mid to late midway through the season as March approaches?
As a doctor in bracketology, I will tell you this. I will tell you that the Big 12 will have the most teams in there. They're consistently the best conference in basketball. Big Ten's right behind them. Despite what he just said out of his mouth saying Kansas is not there. Here's my take on this. You're allowed to lose games. West Virginia's a rough one to lose. I will give you that. But it is on the road. Anything could happen. But when I think in the tournament, upsets regardless, who the better coach team will go. And for my bracket, I think, right now they dropped out of it, but Kansas is going to be a 1 seed and they're going to be a strong 1 seed.
Ooh, the doctor has spoken.
The doctor has.
I'm right now, and you're gonna roll your eyes at me. I'm slotting Kansas in as a 3. Slotting Kansas in
Not
as
even a 2?
and my free bracketology backs me up on this. I checked to make sure because I knew you were gonna give me a little look. But here I'm gonna name you 8 that I see seeding better than them as of this moment.
Okay, let's see.
Purdue, and you can tell me if you agree after every single one of them.
Okay.
Purdue.
Sure.
Houston.
Sure.
Arizona.
I don't think so.
Oh my God, we're already off to a bad start. UConn.
I can see that.
North Carolina.
I can see that.
Tennessee.
I can't see that.
Kentucky,
I can't see that either.
and Auburn. Those are the 8.
Auburn is crazy. You know what?
If you watch the basketball right now, Auburn's playing at an elite level.
Okay, and I get that, but I am also going to take back my Kentucky because they've been amazing. Even though we beat them early in the year, they're a young team. They are so young and so good at basketball. Plus, they just added that kid that was the 7-footer that couldn't play. His first game back, he looked like he's been there. So Kentucky's going to be tough. Yeah.
He looked like 1-1 overall in the NBA draft.
Yeah,
yeah.
Zach Edey Jr.
But now this is where we like to get to. When you talk about tournament talk, you don't talk about the top seeds. You talk about the bubble. All right. And a team that I don't believe is on the bubble that features my glorious king. Oh shit.
Wrong with
Hold on.
Let's see.
It is inside out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all Nebraska fans. We're going to talk about Nebraska a little bit here.
Yeah.
Nebraska at this moment is not a bubble team. They are squarely in the field. I've got them as a 9 at the moment. Something drastic would need to happen for them to fall into the bubble as of this moment. Something always can happen. It takes one injury. Nebraska was really close with Juwan Gary.
Yeah.
But as of this moment, as a Husker fan, you have never seen it before. But they are not even on the bubble. They are above that. Fred Hoiberg has those boys playing at a different level right now.
I agree with this. And for Nebraska, I don't think it has to be completely drastic for them to be on that bubble or out of it. What really needs to happen is we need to see some consistency. Nebraska will go on some streaks and then we'll lose to a bad team. We need to just prove that we can stick because as of now, I see us we're gonna be playing some good comp in the first round, and we're the only Power 5 school that can't get past the first round. We need to prove that we can play past the first round. And right now, it's been kind of rough to gauge that, but this team has the talent. They do.
The problem for Nebraska is the play on the road.
Yeah, they're bad.
When you look at the rest of the schedule, obviously you have road games. But I saw today they released the strength of records today. Nebraska has the 13th strength of schedule the rest of the way, out of 14 in the Big Ten. Okay, that's really easy.
Yeah.
All they have to do is take care of business at home, and they'll be in the tournament. Now they play at Michigan, at Ohio State, at Indiana, at Northwestern, at Illinois, at Maryland. Those are the rest of the road games on the schedule. That Maryland game, that Michigan game, that Indiana game are the most winnable games on the road for them.
I agree.
Get 1 or 2 out of those 3, then you put yourself right back to where we're talking about an 8 or a 9 seed. They just need to figure out how to get over that hump because PBA right now is proving to be one of the hardest places to play in the Big Ten.
No one can hold it. Hold it.
I think they're 12-1 at this point at home. It's insane. Creighton just walked in there and dog walked us. We get it, but I think the lights were just a little bit too bright for that game, and now they're kind of back on track. They're back on track and they're playing their best basketball at home, which is what you need to do. You need to protect the home court when you're playing college basketball.
Listen, this Nebraska team beat the number 1 team in the nation. And you're the team that you still think is the number 1 team in the nation. They can beat anybody they want. It just comes down to the fact of, like just being there. I mean, we're always not going to be hot like that, but sometimes we'll miss a couple, and that'll it comes down to consistency for me. We'll see a couple, and then we just can't get any more. Like I just feel like we need to find a way to be able to get consistent buckets out of either transition, either 3. We just can't chuck up whatever we want to because it happened one game. You know what I mean?
Sometimes I think it just comes down to we have him and you guys don't. And you know who I'm talking about, my glorious king, Keisei Tominaga.
The Japanese curve.
And I think that it needs to be utilized a little bit more if you're Fred Hoiberg. Find ways to get him the ball and get him open because he is the best player on the team. He is. He's one of the best players in college basketball. Let him just it's stereotypical. Let him cook. All right. Let him go out there, take whatever he gets. He has the forever green light. Let him go out there and shoot what he wants, and go let him have 20 every game.
Do what Steve Kerr does with Curry. Honestly, give him the ball.
Exactly. And I wanted to finish off the college basketball segment with a little top. Since we're Big Ten guys, I was going to do a top 5 Big Ten power ranking.
I'm done for that.
I'll start with number 1, Purdue. Despite losing to the Big Red, they still sit firmly in number 1, not really contested. We'll go to second. I got the Badgers, Wisconsin.
Even though I don't like them.
I don't like them at all. They come to PBA.
I think we beat them at PBA for sure.
They come to PBA. They're gonna be in for a rude awakening. PBA is different. But number 3, I've got the Illinois Fighting Illini. With or without Terrence Shannon Jr., they're the 3rd best team in the Big Ten. We get to number 4. I'm going to go with Nebraska. You may call me a homer, but at this point, I don't see another team that can claim the 4 spots. People say Michigan State, they beat Michigan State. People say Northwestern, they beat Northwestern. People have stopped saying Ohio State. Ohio State's on a little bit of a skid, but they're going to beat.
We're about to beat them tonight.
Exactly. So I don't think there's anybody that competes with Nebraska at this moment at the number 4 slot. And despite their record, I'm going to put Michigan State at number 5.
Yeah. I have no objections.
All right. Well, what a great segment. Definitely exciting. Nebraska ball finally being in the conversation up there. You love to see it.
Yeah, that home field advantage is too good.
Oh yeah.
Home court
12-1. Huskers 12-1 at PBA, 1-4 on the road. It's a very clear advantage for the Huskers to be home. All right. Well, we just got one more segment for you here, folks. We're gonna wrap it up with the one we've been looking forward to. The one we've been looking forward to. It's about to get a little angry. It's about to get a little bit mad, folks. When we're back, we're gonna head over to Doula's Debate.
And welcome to the first edition of Doula's Debates. I'm your first host, Davison Kryling, and I will be mediating this little encounter. We got Liam as our first challenger today. Congratulations, Liam, for this big battle here. We're going to start in the NFL. We got 2 NFL questions and 1 college football question. We're going to start in the NFL. Big topic right now, starting to get into the offseason a little bit before our Super Bowl goes down. We're starting with the Eagles. Should the Eagles hold on to Nick Sirianni? Liam, as the challenger, I'll start with you.
No, you have no reason to hold on to Nick Sirianni. First of all, you have one of the strongest head coaching classes that we'll probably see in a long time. You got guys like Ben Johnson coming out, even Harbaugh, which, you're not going to get Harbaugh, but that just goes to show the strength of the head coaching options that you have. And you have no reason to. And when Sirianni got there, Steichen and Gannon were there with him, and they enjoyed the same success that he did. And as soon as they leave, you see maybe one of the worst double-digit win teams I have ever seen. It was ridiculous. They a season ago when they had Steichen and Gannon, they had a top 10 offense and defense. They kept that offensive pace this year, but they finished with the 25th worst defense in all of the league, and they have no reason to do that. They had absolutely no reason for their defense to be that awful. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there are better options. What has Sirianni done for you lately? What has he done for you? I don't think that you can justify keeping a guy who honestly blew that Super Bowl against the Chiefs. They should have won that Super Bowl. There was no reason for them to lose that. I chalk that up to bad coaching.
Abdullah, your counter.
I need to get into character.
Get
Sirianni.
mad.
No. Sirianni, he has the Eagles were on a decline, right? They were on a huge decline. And they needed a savior. And they needed some justice. So they hired Nick Sirianni. Sirianni has been there for 3 years, only 3 years. Okay, in those 3 years, he is 34-17, which I mean, a little slow sample size, but he's one of the highest career winning percentages in Eagles coaching history in those 3 years. Yes, he's 2-3 in the postseason. Yes, the last two were his fault, but he can't control everything. Some of those are Jalen Hurts not making the right decision. Some of that is the offense just stalled. There's nothing you can do about that. If your offense isn't on the same page, if morale is down, that isn't completely on the coach. And I think just as they started off 10-1, they were the best team in football, and I don't think a little skid is enough to fire somebody that just took you to the Super Bowl, that just gave you some of the two best starts to a season, one of your best seasons.
Hold on. I don't know if we can call losing 6 of your last 7 games a little skid. I'm not comfortable calling that a little skid. You lose probably one of the most talented coordinators in the league to the Colts, and they nearly go to the playoffs. Tyler Goodson hurts my heart. But that's a similar story to the Texans. They should not have been in that position. No one thought that they were going to be in that position, but he took them there. And we can't say the same thing for Steichen right now at the Cardinals, but give him time. Let him cook. He has nothing. He's very little. It's just a little skid is generous. That is very generous.
Yes, but you're saying that the coordinator's leaving. That's not on Sirianni.
No, it's not on Sirianni. But the coordinators made Sirianni, is what I'm saying. I'm saying he is very little without those coordinators.
I mean, you can make a case for the end of the season, but I don't think a 10-1 start. I don't think you can't skim past that. Of course, it doesn't mean much, but there's just not enough sample size for you to give him up. I get the huge coaching class, but the Eagles aren't even going after anybody because they're going to stick with their guy at least another year.
Hold on. I want you guys to comment specifically about the losing skid. I know you've hit it a little bit, but the losing skid, how Abdullah is sincere for keeping Sirianni. I want to know how that isn't on him, and Liam, I want to know exactly why that is on him.
Okay, I'll go first. Obviously, when you lose games like that, you're gonna look to the head coach, right? And obviously, some things are gonna be on him. But what goes out on the field during play isn't on the coach. He can call the plays all he wants, but how it performs is not on him. And I think you can attribute that to just how the offense played. They just did not look like the same Eagles offense, and that's not on Sirianni. It looks like the Eagles forgot how to play football. And I don't think that can completely be put on the head coach, who can clearly has shown that he can put together winning games. He can put together huge win streaks.
He only did that without the start to this year. That only ever happened under Gannon and Steichen. We hadn't seen that before. And yes, he had one this year, and then it was followed by 6-7 losing games. And when this happened, it was very clear that he lost control of that locker room. He did not have any control over what was going on with his players. The fallout between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, he didn't have any control of it. There's clearly no respect there between Sirianni and his players. And I can't say I blame them, but it's very clear that they are not fully behind him. And as a GM, when you see this happen, there's not much else you can do. Like they're clearly not behind Sirianni, and Jalen Hurts gave one of the most half-assed answers I have ever seen in that press conference when they asked him, "How do you feel about Sirianni maybe being gone?" And he goes, "I didn't know he was going anywhere." That doesn't seem like he's advocating for his guy to be there. We've seen press conferences like this before where these guys have been like, "No, they are staying. They are staying." Like even Justin Jefferson with Kirk Cousins, he wants him there. He wants him there. And it just doesn't seem the same between Hurts. And if your quarterback isn't even behind your head coach, the rest of the players aren't either.
All right, Abdullah, I'll give you a short and quick conclusion to this one. We'll move on to the next segment.
It's Sirianni's team. It's always going to come back to him, but he coaches and he game manages, but he isn't the one giving out the plays, so you can't completely blame everything on him. Those are the coordinator job, and yes, they're not as good as last year, but he doesn't have like it just can't go all on him. You don't fire the top, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can have bad employees under you, but you don't fire the boss because that's not the boss's fault.
All right. I think you guys both made some great points on that one. And we'll move on to our only college football question. I want to know who are your top 4 preseason college football teams. I've got my own little list. It's not the end all be all, but I have like a list of 10 teams that should probably be considered, and I'll base your guys' as long as you guys have reasons, I'll hear them out. But I have a pretty good idea of what it should look like. Abdullah, I'll start with you.
My top 4 for next year, I have Georgia at number 1. They brought in the number 1 recruiting class for the next year. They blew out a national. I mean, they sat their players, but they blew out a good team 63-3. It's just they just played so like Kirby Smart is one of the best coaches in college football. Saban just left. It's under a fresh. Georgia is the powerhouse now. So I have them at number 1. Number 2, I have Texas. The returning of Quinn Ewers puts them there. They were a couple bad throws away from a national title appearance. They played a very good Washington team. And I think that team, now that they had that experience and they're bringing everybody back, it's just going to be a well-oiled machine. They already know how to get there. For number 3, I have Ohio State. They have killed the transfer portal right now. They just brought in Julian Sayin, who's going to be their starting quarterback, who is, I think, more talented than McCord. They kept some of their this team is going to be back to what we usually see Ohio State. That's them. I think they're gonna. I think they're just completely reloading. They absolutely you can't go. You can't just bring in all those recruits and all those transfers and not put them in the top. And
I've got a question about Ohio State real quick. Who do you
Yeah.
so you mentioned Julian Sayin being better than Kyle McCord. I want to know, is that who you think their starter will be going into this next season?
I understand that they got Will Howard, who is more proven, but you bring in a 5-star recruit who was that dominant in high school, someone that grew under Saban, he's going to bring that SEC to the Big Ten, and I'm not a lot of. We know what it looks like when someone that is that talented, that's played in that hard of a division, what they can do in the Big Ten, and especially with that talented of a roster. And you could say what you want about Ryan Day, but he has proven to at least get them to big games. And then for number 4, a little controversial, but I have Oregon. They have a very good team. Last year they were just outside of the college football playoff, and what you're talking about, they're losing their Heisman candidate, Bo Nix. They're reloading with Dylan Gabriel, who played beautiful at Oklahoma. He's proven to win. He beat Texas. He's proven. And when you put him in with Dan Lanning, who is just a great head coach, young head coach, those two are going to create some problems for college football, I believe.
I like it. I like that top 4. Liam, I'd like to hear yours.
Okay. Remind me who was his 4th? I remember Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon.
Yeah, he went
Texas.
Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon in order.
We have the same 4. Okay. All right. Little different order. I have Georgia number 1. You can't deny Georgia number 1. Carson Beck coming back, number 1 recruiting class again. And as long as they have Kirby Smart there, they will be a top 4 team. They can be 4, they can be 1. Kirby Smart has proven to be one of the best player developers in college football these past few years, and that's not going to change. He's going to continue that trend. He's going to continue developing, and they're losing some firepower on the offensive line. Bowers is gone, but that hasn't stopped them before. It's that next man up mentality. They have a lot of really promising prospects to bring. I mean, I'm not at all worried about this Georgia team. They're going to go back to their dominant ways this next year. Outside of that, I think it becomes a little uncertain. All right, number 2 is Ohio State. Will Howard, the guy. Will Howard is the guy. And he's going to continue being the guy until someone unseats him. And I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, because it might. It might. You really have no way to be certain about these things. But something I am certain about is that Caleb Downs' addition to that Ohio Ohio State defense is going to be disgusting. I'm really excited to see that. I think that defense is going to just be top tier because of the addition with Caleb Downs. And then Jeremiah Smith, who with Brian Hartline as your wide receivers coach, he's going to dominate. Whatever receivers Abuka's returning, Abuka's going to dominate. Abuka's going to do great as that number one guy. I'm excited to see it. And I'm really happy that Jeremiah Smith isn't going to start as that wide receiver one immediately, because that can be a lot of pressure, especially in Columbus. But Ryan Day, as Abdullah said earlier, is a good head coach. I mean, you cannot deny that. There's some people who are saying, oh, he can't beat Michigan. And this is the year where he has to get up that hump, I think. I mean, he really, especially with a depleted Michigan roster and no Jim Harbaugh, I mean, this is where he really has to lock in. Number 3, I got Texas. Quinn Ewers is back. Steve Sarkisian has proved that Texas is back, and I don't think that's going to change this year. Worthy and Mitchell being gone is going to hurt. That is going to sting. But I'm not really worried about. They have a really talented, soon-to-be sophomore running back in C.J. Baxter. I'm excited to see him continue to develop in that offense. Their offensive line is returning, I think, 4 out of 5 starters as of right now, and they look really good this year. That secondary, they're not losing much. They're going to continue to develop, and that was the weak point of that team, was their secondary. That was the weak link, and they're going to continue to develop. I'm excited to see this Texas team. I think they're going to continue to be good, and I think we'll see them in the top 4 again. And finally, we have the same exact top 4. It's Oregon. It is Oregon. Like he said, Dylan Gabriel is a proven winner in college football. That's not going to change under Dan Lanning. They have a tough schedule. That's something I'm a little worried about, is without that Pac-12 schedule, which this year was tougher, but again, 2 of the 3 losses were Washington. With Dylan Gabriel there, and then Dante Moore is coming in from UCLA, that quarterback room is set. I am not worried at all about quarterbacks. I'm not worried about that defense. Defense is never going to be an issue under Dan Lanning. I really think they're going to just storm this season. They have nothing to lose. They truly have nothing to lose. They were this short of the playoff a season ago, and I think that they're gonna be in the playoff. And I think even if this season were a 14 playoff again, I think they'd still be in.
To end off the college football part of this, I want to know, neither of you had them in your top 4, which is their borderline. So I want to know what your opinions are on the Ole Miss Rebels going into this next season.
Yeah, Ole Miss absolutely. Last season they were they were a pretty good team. But how they played this offseason as well has been very impressive. They've played some pretty good football teams throughout last season. They were able to beat LSU and Jaden Daniels, which is he's the Heisman. Like, they could go out there and beat anybody they want. And then what they added this offseason with the recruiting class, and I don't know much big transfer names they got, but I know they've gotten some. They could easily make a push for being up in those top 4, but they're just not proven for me. The teams that I put in the top 4 were teams that were on the cusp and then just missed out or was already in there. It's the experience. I don't think Ole Miss has it yet. They could get there, but that's why I left them out. It's just that they're just a little too new to be in there for me.
I was close with Ole Miss. I had 2 teams, actually. Both Ole Miss and Missouri are fringe teams for me. Ole Miss, the loss of Quinshon Judkins, that hurts. If you're Ole Miss, Judkins going to Ohio State, that is not good. I'm not at all worried about that offense, especially under Kiffin and Dart. I think they'll continue to be fine. But Judkins was a force for them for these past 2 years. That is going to sting for a while. And honestly, it's a very tiny thing to knock somebody for, but that lack of just a power run game, as of right now, they could find their guy, in transfer portal and recruiting, but as of right now, I'm leaving them out because they lost probably one of their best players in Quinshon Judkins. And it's hard to find who's next up when you have such a star leaving your team. it's really going to be difficult for them to find that next up guy. And Missouri, people are leaving Missouri off, but no one expected Missouri to win 11 games this year. I was one of them. I did not see Missouri winning 11 games. They look like a team that could compete with anybody. They were competing with Georgia, and not many people did that. Not many people did that. So those two teams, and then even teams like Michigan and Washington, they're right there, but their losses just, for me, outweigh their gains as of right now.
I agree with that completely.
All right, and we'll move on to our final question, which is Justin Fields the guy in Chicago? It's down crunch time. This is the last question for us, and we'll start with Liam.
All right. Is Justin Fields the guy? No. And I'll tell you why. He's gotten better these 3 years. He's gotten better. And granted, he has had some tough regimes. Going from Nagy to Eberflus, just with uncertainties everywhere, that will be tough on any quarterback, and I'm not going to deny that from him. But this year was a huge year. He's had the best roster of his career this year, with no doubts in my mind. He had the best roster that he's had before, and he hasn't put up numbers. And when you are passing up on a guy like Caleb Williams or Drake May or Jaden Daniels, you have to be absolutely certain that you have your guy. And the numbers just aren't there. That's not saying that they're not going to be there. That's not saying he might not be the guy somewhere else. I just don't think it's in Chicago. And a phrase that you're going to hear a lot, and I'm going to use a lot is reset that quarterback clock. Because Fields is due a payday. Not this year, but soon. He is going to be due a big payday. Even though he might not be worth that much money, that's what you're going to have to pay him. You are going to have to pay him Daniel Jones type money, $40 million a year, maybe 45. And with a team like this that needs as much money as you can get, you are cutting that in half. Just going forward, you are limiting how much talent you can put around him, which people are always saying he needs more talent. He needs more talent. But if you pay him all this money, you're not going to be able to give him that talent. With a guy like Williams and Daniels and May, you're resetting that quarterback clock. You're keeping your salary cap intact so you can continue to put talent around him. And as that is absolutely priority one, is talent outside of the quarterback position. Because with Williams or Fields, you know that you have talent. I think Fields is a very talented NFL quarterback, and I think he could work out. I just don't think he's going to work out in Chicago.
Abdullah?
So you mentioned that if you pay Fields, that you won't be able to, give him a roster that he needs, right? The Bears are notorious for not even using that money that they have on offense. They only spend it on their defense. And I think that it's time to, show you need to prove what you have. Here's my thing. Justin Fields, every single year, even though it's been slightly, he has leveled up his play every single year. He's been getting better and better. And I feel like you can't throw that away. Yes, he has his best roster, but is this roster playoff worthy? Absolutely not. And he still did some things with it.
You could argue that it was, though. You could argue that it was. That defense.
I don't think so. I think the schedule is what you could argue, but not the roster.
That defense at the end of the year was a top 10 defense in the league.
Justin
the
Fields
Sweat edition.
Justin Fields can't control.
No, he can't. But he can control what he does on offense. He can't control what he does on offense.
That's not.
And to an extent, it is. You can argue play calling. You can argue whatever. But this stigma that he has the worst offensive line in the league is false. It is just not true. His offensive line is not great, but they are decent. They are decent. He holds the ball longer than any other quarterback in the league. And that is a stat that is cemented. He holds the ball long, and he is just constantly looking for plays to make. And you know what? That's not a bad thing in a young quarterback.
And that could just be chopped up to the talent around him. If you don't have the talent to move around and get open, that could be. The one person that was able to do consistently, you have two players. You have Komet and DJ Moore. Outside of that, no one else can get open. That's just based off of just how talented they are.
That's more talent than he's ever had in the past. And DJ Moore,
and he did stuff with it. He has had the
top 10 receiver in the league.
He has proved that it's working. He has moved.
He had his.
No,
He
because
had
this
his best season. He threw less touchdown passes than he did a year ago. He threw 2 less
one
interceptions.
less,
His QB
one
rate,
less.
his QB rate, Abdullah, his QB rate went up 1 point.
But didn't I say that
1
he
point.
had, it's been
His
it's been a slow
QBR,
it's been a slow margin, but he has been getting better every single year.
that's not true though. He got sacked less this year, but his QBR, which is more compact than quarterback rating, went down 12 points.
Sure.
That is a quarterback stat.
But
That is
how many
purely a
games
quarterback
did he
stat.
be? But did he play every game that he could have?
He played 2 less games last year, and that's 11 less sacks. He's not taking 11 sacks in 2 games, maybe 6. His QBR, I mean, this honestly, you could argue this was not a good year for him, and I would be among that. He got an MVP vote last year. He got a single MVP vote, which I am astonished by. But he is not going to get an MVP vote this year. It was me. It was me. Whatever.
Okay. Another point I want to put on is, you wanting to restart the QB room. Listen, the Bears. You mentioned it earlier in this episode that the Bears, they moved from Lovie Smith too early. This could be another case. Oh, shiny new horizon. But why don't you stick with what you have when it's proven to be there? It's there. You know what I mean? He's still young. He's
not there.
If you draft, you want to put talent around him. You have the number one. You have 2 first-round picks, 2 lottery picks. You have the best wide receiver prospect we've seen in years. Why don't you try that out with him? Why would you waste the chance?
Let's say you draft him.
No, why would you waste the chance to give your quarterback that was already proven to be better? Why would you not give him weapons instead of getting a new quarterback and then losing the chance to get that quarterback weapon? You're just giving him the same exact team. He's gonna play like dog shit, and then you're gonna be in the same situation. Oh, we should draft the new quarterback because Caleb Williams is not there. You need to put a roster around him.
Okay, let's say you pass up on Caleb Williams, who, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, is a generational quarterback talent. Let's say you give him Marvin Harrison Jr. If it works, great, it worked. Good job. If it doesn't, what then? If it doesn't work, you passed up 3 great prospects. This is probably one of the strongest quarterback classes that we are going to see in years, that we are going to see in a long time. Sure.
Here,
let's say you pass up on those quarterbacks. You draft Marvin Harrison Jr. If it doesn't work, you are done. Every person in that building is getting fired.
But I have proof that your method's not going to work because Zach Wilson was a generational quarterback. They drafted Garrett.
Who? According to who?
Was he not a number? He was a top-rated quarterback. Anything they drafted him thinking that he's going to save the franchise. He has proven to not be there. That's the chance you're taking. I don't care how good they were in college. This is the NFL. It's a different game. You can't gauge how good they're going to be.
First overall pick. We are talking about a unanimous first overall pick. Wilson was a fringe top 5 guy in that 2021 class, which now is shit.
So Marcus Russell was automatic. I'm just saying you can't gauge college.
16 years ago.
NFL's
16 years ago.
The NFL's a different game. The NFL's a different game.
Enhanced. Exactly. So you can't compare that.
But also, please look at the last number 1 pick in Bryce Young. I think that's exactly what you're just giving him nothing. You're just putting him in a system that already has nothing. They have nothing. Why don't you have a quarterback that has been proven to give you a chance and give him the shot? There's no point. Why would you leave what you have? You're just pulling a classic Bears. You're too greedy.
You were comparing one of the worst built rosters in recent memory to a roster that just won 7 games. That's not a comparison that you can make. Bryce Young and nobody. Truly Bryce Young and nobody. And you know what? Fine. That's not a bad comparison. But DJ Moore and Cole Kmet alone you have nobody like that on this Panthers offense. And you're not going to have anybody like that because they gave away their first round pick to take their guy. The Bears, after Mitch Trubisky, Ryan Post has made it clear that we're changing that narrative. We are not trading a first round pick to get our guy. If you pass up on Caleb Williams and you're wrong, you're not going to get another prospect like this.
But like you said,
no
Justin Fields. Like you stated yourself earlier, Justin Fields
not a generational
NFL
talent.
quarterback, and I think you're giving up a chance of something that that could happen versus something that he's the number 1 pick. He's obviously going to be good. Why wouldn't I just think it would not be the smartest idea to leave somebody that has progressed, that can with weapons. He has made teams better. College football playoffs, he has made teams better. You put a roster around him. He has performed.
How How are you going to build a roster without him? If
You
are
draft wide
paid?
receivers instead of
If
drafting
you
a quarterback. You draft a wide receiver. Instead of drafting-
you draft one wide receiver. That's not building a roster. That is
You have
one
two-
player. That is
You have two
one
lottery picks.
player.
You have two lottery picks. You can do whatever you want.
You're not going to use both of them. What do you use the second one on? What do you tell me
and then
who you
also
use the second pick on?
You also made the case that Justin Fields. Oh, sorry. Getting a little heated over here. You made the case that Justin Fields is going to demand a huge payday. Do you not know how many players that are also going to demand a huge payday? You're going to have to pay DJ Moore, whatever. You're going to lose Caleb Williams anyway.
DJ Moore's under contract for 4 more years. DJ Moore is under contract for 4 more years.
You're going to be stuck eventually.
DJ Moore payday is
money.
not a concern. DJ Moore is not a concern right now. He is under contract. Komet just got re-signed.
You remember
the contract is not
too.
an issue.
You have a defense.
The only
too.
contract on defense that is up is Jalen Johnson. You give him a payday, he is asking for half of what Justin Fields would ask for.
But what happens when it comes
Johnson,
to paying Caleb Williams? You're not going to have that money for a generational talent. He wasn't
How? We're not paying anybody.
Listen, Caleb Williams.
Currently,
what did Caleb Williams do this season? He was supposed to be. He has a good roster around him. He couldn't do anything. Justin Fields, that Bears roster should not have won 7 games. You know it just as well.
Pause, guys. Pause. I've set a 1-minute timer. You guys have 1 minute to just yell at each other, and then we're gonna wrap it up. All right.
That Bears roster is fine. You are making this case that it is a bottom 5 roster in the league. It's not. It is truly not. Ryan Poles came in.
I didn't say
that's
they're
how you're
top 5. I
treating
just
it.
say they're not. That team
How many games
is not as good without him.
Tell me,
not as good without him.
Tell me a reasonable number of games that they should have won.
Okay, let me give you a little rundown of their schedule here, buddy. In these games, there's games that you've won that are not won without Justin Fields' ability.
His
you
record as a quarterback is 10-28. He cannot win as a quarterback.
But you're denying the roster. You're that's also roster. You're putting everything on him. You're putting everything on him. It's his fault that his team sucks.
Prior to this season, 3-12 last year. 3-12 last year. They started off 3-0, and he played horrific the rest of the season. He was horrific the rest of the season. He was fine. The first 3-4 games of that season, no one thought they were going to start off that strong, but he looked fine, and he just fell off the cliff. Yes, his roster is not ideal. It's not ideal. And you know what? You have means to address that. You have a strong free agency class, receivers. You have guys like T. Higgins, Gabe Davis. You can justify not drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. because T. Higgins and Gabe Davis. And you know what? Generational talent, you would have to pay Marvin Harrison Jr. You would have to pay him more than you will have to pay Higgins or guys like Gabe Davis. You know what? You can get a receiver room. If you can get a receiver room with T. Higgins or DJ Moore in it, I'm not worried about receivers after that. I'm not worried about receivers after that. Quarterback is the most important position in the league. It's the most important position in the league. And you don't have a certifiable winner at that position. But at the end of the day, that is the issue.
You can't give someone you can't call him a losing or winning quarterback if you give them barely any chance. You finally have a chance to put a team around him, and you're just going to walk away for a chance. Like, I just don't get that. If someone that has proven, like, he is proven to be there, he can get each individual year. He is better.
He hasn't won when it's counted. He hasn't won when it's counted. He has had multiple chances for game-winning drives. You know how many game-winning drives he's had in his career? 1. And it came this year. That's too late. That is too late.
Another reason that
you can blame roster. Clutch quarterbacks make clutch plays no matter the talent around them. Mahomes makes clutch plays with guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling around him. But that's not talent. You can make the case for Justin Fields
has Justin Fields ever had a coaching staff that has set him up for success? You've stated before he has not.
All right.
You can't blame everything on Justin Fields. You cannot blame everything on Justin Fields. And that's exactly
Is that time?
I'm giving him to a final point with that last point.
Bro, we tied.
Tie. A tie on the first episode of the podcast.
That was a banger. Oh my god.
Guys,
Holy shit, you guys.
Abdullah's
Calm
comeback
down.
is last wild.
Liam just woke up this whole floor, bro.
Guys,
That
that
is
was
not a study room. That is not a study room. That's a
What
rage room.
What a battle, bro. Honestly, but that is how you kick off duelist debates, bro.
And that's what you get more. That's what you get on more on episodes. So keep tuning in. That was
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for episode 1 of Take Two podcast. We're excited to keep improving. We're trying different things out. You know, this is very new, very difficult, but each episode, we promise you, we'll get better. We'll get better and better, and then we'll start to figure out what works, what doesn't, and it's just the quality is gonna keep going up. So, like Abdullah said, stay tuned, bro. If that last segment didn't hype you up, I don't know what will. All right. That's Abdullah. That's Danny. That's Davison. That's Liam. I'm Nathan. And until next week, see you later.
Go Chiefs.